Hi everybody, it's Jen. Welcome back to my channel, Hallmark Plus More, where we watch and talk about shows, movies, mysteries, Hallmark ornaments, and anything else that floats our boat. So today I'm going to be reviewing a Hallmark Channel mystery movie, the Aurora Teagarden series, A Lesson in Murder. So before I get into the review, I just want to say thank you to everybody who likes my videos, subscribes to my channel, leaves me comments. I appreciate you so much. If you have any discussion questions or comments about this video or any of my reviews, you can leave them below. So, getting into this movie, right? This is the second in kind of a series of prequels to the original Aurora Teagarden series with Candace Cameron Bure. So, this is kind of a younger version of Aurora. Now, keep in mind, my channel is a judge-free zone, so I know a lot of people like the new movies and some people don't. I loved the Aurora Teagarden with Candace Cameron Bure. However, times change. I like that they're continuing with the series. I feel like you just got to get used to the new actresses and actors. I love them. I think she does a great job as a young Aurora. Obviously, you can never replace Candace Cameron Bure. She's great, but I do like her in this role. I think they picked a great actress. I love the actress that plays Sally. I think that really coincides with the Sally from the other Aurora Teagarden. And they play into that with her being a journalist and taking, journalist classes and everything. And Mary Lou Henner is in here, which is Aida. So I'm so glad she's back. She's really the only familiar face from the ones with Candace Cameron Bure and these new ones. But I love the person, the actor who plays Arthur. They bring in a new person, Arthur's boss named Cook. So I personally, obviously you can never replace people that you've seen for so long, like Candace Cameron Bure, but I do like the new actors and actresses. I love mystery movies, especially if they're wholesome, and they're on the Hallmark Channel. So I welcome this new change. And again, Judge Free Zone, I know a lot of people have strong opinions about it. But I definitely enjoyed it. And getting into the review, at the end, stay with me at the end because I always do my Gen rating. So, getting into this movie, it starts out in college, in a college class. Aurora is a TA, which means teacher's assistant, for a class about crime. They discuss poisons, kind of like a whodunit class. So I apologize, I did not write down the actual name of the class that she's overseeing. But it is, in the crime realm, because remember, that's what her thesis is about. And the professor is Professor Lindo. So right away, they start to give you some conflict. You see a couple exiting the class, or Kevin exiting the class, meeting up with his girlfriend, Jenny. And as they're walking, they see somebody and, Jenny goes, yeah, Owen's been following me. So then you immediately think, is he stalking? Is he an ex? Why are they putting that dialogue in there? Is Jenny afraid of Owen? So they kind of show that early on. And then you also see Cal Watson, which is the old TA. Aurora and the professor are in her office, and Cal comes in wanting a recommendation, or kind of confronting her for not giving him a recommendation. And she basically says, sorry, but not sorry. Like, I'm not going to give you a recommendation. So he kind of gets upset and leaves. And you find out the reason that she fired him as her TA was he was giving his friends good grades, grades they didn't earn. So he was really kind of taking advantage of his position as TA and giving his friends, good marks, even though they didn't deserve it. So that is kind of how she found out, or why she let him go. And Aurora tried to be like, hi, I'm Aurora. And he didn't even shake her hand. So he was kind of cold to Aurora, even though he didn't even know her. So, you kind of have him kind of an ego, kind of an angry person. And then the first scene in the movie, you see a break-in or a robbery of a dentist office. You see what looks like a man dressed in black, and he kind of gasses the receptionist because she kind of walks in on him. I hear some commotion. She goes on back. So she's not harmed, which is good. You find out later, that she wasn't harmed. She just kind of got, gave her the gas mask, and he took or did whatever he wanted to do. So it definitely kind of gives you a lot of people and suspects at the beginning. You see that Aurora has a date with Daniel, which is the cook from the diner, who I love. I think he's a great character. You can tell he really cares for Aurora. And of course, you still have that little chemistry and flirtation with Arthur too. You can really kind of tell that Arthur wants to date Aurora, but he understands, that she's dating Daniel. And it's early in the relationship. I think her and Daniel only been on a couple dates, but you can kind of see that triangle forming. Daniel's kind of aware of it, but kind of confident that Aurora's with him. But Arthur sees it too, and you can kind of get that feel he wants more. And it's kind of addressed throughout the movie too. And then you see Sally, and I love the actress who plays Sally. I think she does great. And she's trying to get her credits for her journalism degree, which obviously plays into, her later on being, a reporter. And she kind of says she's moving back home with her parents. And her and Aurora have, a conversation. Yeah, I'm living with my mom. And then Aida overhears. And you find out Aida has taken a job on the campus working with another professor. So that kind of shows Aida in other scenes, right? Because this is going to be a murder that happens on campus or with college students. And that brings Aida into the mix. So once she said that, I was like, okay, maybe she's going to be involved. And you see Aida on campus, and you see two college kids kind of fighting, shoving each other, Tanner and Kevin. And Aida actually gets coffee spilled on her by one of the boys. And then the other boy rips down his backpack, and all his papers and everything falls. And of course, Aida's bag falls because she gets coffee spilled on her. So, they're helping put the papers back in his backpack and back to Aida. So when I saw that scene, I was like, okay, this is going to come up later. Somebody's going to get the wrong papers. Aida's going to get some of the kids' college papers, and it's going to be a clue or something like that, or vice versa, right? But I knew that was going to get involved when I was like, why are they taking the time to show picking up the papers, putting it in the backpack? And Aida's like, yeah, and just grabbing her folders and leaving because she's got coffee all over her. And you do see that later that, when they bring in one of the boys, they're like, this was in your folder. And he's like, I don't know where that came from. So I was like, okay, that came from Aida. Like, hey, Aurora, I found this folder in my things. It must have been when the two boys were fighting. It must have belonged to so-and-so. So you kind of get that feel, on why Aida was involved, and the folders looked the same color when they were cleaning it up. So that kind of comes into play. And the two kids fighting, they're in Aurora's class, obviously. She's involved. And she talks to one of them. She talks to Tanner. And Tanner said Kevin. Now remember, Kevin is the one whose girlfriend is Jenny. That I spoke about earlier. So Tanner was saying Kevin ran into him at practice last year, and it actually broke his leg. So Tanner had to have surgery on his leg. So since he broke his leg, he's obviously not on the baseball team. Tanner was shortstop. He was out for the year getting surgery. And then this year he was like ready to get back on the team, and the coach didn't give him the position. So Kevin got the position last year. Kevin's the one who hit him. And as a result, Tanner had to have surgery since he broke his leg. Kevin got the shortstop spot last year. And then this year the coach gave it to Kevin again, right? Let him keep it. So Tanner's upset because he's like, look, that was my position. You hit me, I broke my leg, you took my position, and now I'm healed and ready to go back, and you're still keeping the position. Coach won't give it back to me. So, yes, I understand the frustration and the anger from Tanner, but at the same time, the coach is the one who kept it with Kevin this year. So when I heard that, I'm like, okay, I know they're setting up, anger and conflict between the two, but I mean, you can't really blame Kevin for the coach giving it to him this year. You can blame Kevin if you want for hurting you last year. I mean, accidents happen. A lot of people get injured in different sports. But yeah, when I was seeing that, I'm like, okay, they're setting that conflict up. And so and I apologize, I'm looking at my notes. So you're kind of setting up a couple different people, right? And then you find out that Kevin, remember, this is one who has the shortstop position. He's kind of falling behind in class. So Aurora, kind of volunteers to tutor him. Like, hey, I work at the diner, come by on my breaks. That's after your practice, and we can work on it, right? So, and then of course, when she has her break at the diner, she sees Kevin in his car, and the professor comes by. So Aurora and the professor go to Kevin and they find out he's dead. But there's no blood, no sign of a struggle. So you're like, okay, like, how did he die? Aurora notices that his skin is starting to turn blue. So she's like, that's a sign of poisoning. And we're researching poisoning in the class. So one of Aurora's assignments was, pick one of these stories where somebody was poisoned and write a story on how they were poisoned and, how it related to the killer. So Aurora's like, hey, we're researching that. I think he was poisoned. So of course, Arthur's like, you gotta let us do our job. But now we're lining it up. We know who was killed, which was Kevin. So now I'm going, okay, we've got a couple different suspects. We try to find out his timeline. When they find him in the car, he's holding a shake. And they find out what he was doing was there is a hangout called Pizza and Play. And it's, a pizza joint, but it's also an arcade. They have like a mini golf course. They have batting cages. They have like a soft play, kind of like playground area inside. And of course, you can sit and order pizza and have soda and stuff like that. So we find out that's where Kevin was earlier that day. He was at the batting cages. He had a shake. And you do see the shake in the car, so you're like, okay, that's probably how he was poisoned. But you do find that out later. And you also find out that at the Pizza and Play is where Cal works. So remember, Cal is the old TA that kind of is upset with Professor Lindo. But you also find out that, how I was saying Cal kind of got fired for being a TA because he was, passing along good grades to people that didn't earn it. Well, Kevin is the one who told the professor that Cal was doing that. So Kevin was kind of the snitch that got Cal fired. So we're kind of setting up motives for the suspects. We got Cal as the suspect. They find out he was poisoned in the shake. So Cal's the one who made him the shake, right? He's got a motive because Kevin's the one who turned him in and he got fired, and, that messed up his career because he was fired from a TA. And then you've got Tanner, right, who was injured because of Kevin. Kevin took his position last year, took his position this year. He got in a scuffle and a shoving match with them. Kevin is dating Jenny, and you see Owen, who I mentioned at the beginning of the scene where Jenny was like, hey, Kevin, Owen's following me again. You find out Owen is Jenny's ex and was a good friend with Kevin. So he's got a motive because, one of his best friends or good friends was Kevin, and now, Jenny was his ex and now they're dating. So you've got a conflict there. Is he jealous because he wants Jenny back, or you know what I mean? What friendship do they have? Because once you talk to Owen, he says that he was on good terms with Kevin. So you kind of got suspects here. And then you've got Jenny, which is the girlfriend, which you wouldn't suspect has a motive, but At this pizza and play, they have special shakes for athletes, some that have extra, a boost of energy shots or protein. You can actually add things to your shake. So a lot of the athletes that go there, that do the batting cages and get all worked up, they like these protein shakes. And you make it like a regular shake at, any kind of diner, but you add the protein shake or the powder. So you see Cal add the powder to the shake. So you're like, okay, maybe Cal's the one because he ordered the shake. Well, you see in a video footage of, because the pizza and play has footage of inside, and you see Jenny put something in the shake, and it was a sugar packet. So you later question Jenny, and she shows you the sugar packet she keeps in her purse. She said that Kevin said the drink was a little bitter and she added sugar. So they're saying she's a suspect because she tampered with the shake. And then Owen's the one who ordered the shakes. So you see for a second there, Owen is at like the drink machine getting straws or whatever he's getting. So his back is turned to the camera. So that gives him a couple seconds, to alter the drink. And then Tanner comes and actually gets in another kind of shoving match or argument with Tanner, and he knocks the drink down. So all of the suspects are Cal, Owen, Jenny, and Tanner, and they all had access, to his drink because they find out he was poisoned by the shake. So you're like, okay. You also find out he was poisoned by sodium nitrate, a lethal amount of sodium nitrate. That's what killed him. So you kind of are thinking, well, those are kind of the four suspects anyways. Poison is typically a woman's method or weapon. But I feel like they said that a couple times, so I wasn't thinking it was Jenny. Yes, she put sugar packets in the drink, but was the drink bitter because Cal put the sodium nitrate in it to begin with, or Owen put it in? So, or was it just coincidence that it was bitter, and that happens a lot because apparently she keeps sugar packets in her purse. So there's a lot going on. Of course, Aurora wants to investigate, right? So she goes back to the pizza and play with Daniel, convinces them to go on a date so she can investigate. Daniel is not upset, but he does figure it out. And remember, he was just killed like that night. I'm pretty sure it was that day or that night or dinner time. And you see Tanner at the batting cages and he's like, yes, I did great. And the team's cheering him on. And he's like, yeah, that's how I get my position back. And Aurora kind of sees it and they kind of lock eyes. And I think Tanner realized, like, oh, I'm celebrating a little too soon. And it was kind of off. Like, whether you dislike somebody or not, they were just killed. I mean, you're celebrating a little too fast, right? So that was definitely suspicious. I understand if you don't care for somebody, um, but that was a little too fast, in my opinion. So that was definitely suspicious. You later find out there's other indications to suspect Jenny. So last year, they took a class, the same class, and they had to like read a book and write about, a poison. And Jenny wrote about sodium nitrate. So that was a little suspicious. It was her, and I believe Owen. I'll have to check my notes. But they have another break-in, and this time it's at the professor's office, and they kind of throw everything around. So this is a second break-in. Remember, at the beginning of the movie, we saw the break-in at the dentist office, and then we see a break-in at the professor's office, stealing some files. She goes through it, right? Obviously, she's cleaning up her office, and she realizes what was taken, and it was the entire semester of papers. So it wasn't just Jenny's paper on sodium nitrate, it was every single person in that class who wrote about them. So then you're thinking, okay, well, who broke into the office? Was it the same person who broke into the dentist office was the same person who poisoned Kevin. And you later find that the dentist office that was broken into was Tanner's mom's office. So then you're like, okay, that's related, right, to one of the four suspects. But they're like, why would Tanner break into his own mom's office if he wanted to steal the sodium nitrate? Because it's used in dentist procedures. So we find out from the beginning of the movie, if anything was taken, yes, sodium nitrate was taken. So that's how they're linked. Somebody broke into the dentist office, stole the sodium nitrate that was used to kill Kevin. It was Tanner's mom's dentist office. So that's tying in Tanner. But they kept saying, why would Tanner break into the office? He has the keys. It's his mom's office. Like, why would he do that? It has to be somebody else. So when a movie I'm watching says the same thing like two or three times within the 2 hour movie, I'm thinking, okay, they're trying to throw us off. My first thought was that it was Tanner because it was his mom's office, because nobody would suspect that he would break into his mom's office. So I was kind of thinking it was him. He broke into the office to make it look like a robbery, to make it look like it was somebody else. When it was him, he knew exactly where to go to get the sodium nitrate. So that was kind of my first thought was, you've said it twice now. Why would Tanner break into his mom's shop? Or mom's dentist office. So that's why I suspected it to be Tanner. But they're kind of setting up all four suspects. So you've got Jenny, who's the girlfriend who wrote the paper on sodium nitrate, who put the sugar in his shake at the table on video. Then you've got Cal, who on video made the shake originally, right? And he wants revenge because Kevin's the one who snitched and got him in trouble and fired from TA. You've got Owen, who is Kevin's ex-friend or still friends, and the ex to Jenny. So is Owen jealous of, Kevin having Jenny, and could do it that way because Owen did, order the drinks and did have that one scene where he had his back to us when he was getting straws or whatever, at the station. Tanner, who obviously is upset because he had a fight with Kevin and a scuffle, and you see him kind of throw his drink in the pizza play. So he was jealous that he took his his shortstop position last year for breaking his leg, and this year for taking it again. And you saw him kind of argue with them, have words, and he kind of kicked the shake over. So you have all four suspects and you have them all four touching the shake. So, I mean, my thought has gone back and forth. First off, I took Jenny out of the equation, only because they were like, it's poison. That's typically, a woman's, avenue on what a woman would normally use. However, I have gone back and thought, okay, I don't think it's one person. The fact that there's so much on all four of these people, I think somebody was in on it together. So then my initial thought was it's Jenny and Owen, because the other thing that I thought was odd, they've taken each of these suspects in for questioning. And every time they took one in for questioning, they all threw it at somebody else. So, like Tanner, when they brought Tanner in, Tanner was like, well, you should be looking at Cal. He was mad because Kevin snitched him, got him fired. And I'm thinking, Tanner, how do you know it was Kevin who got Cal fired? So I feel like there's information when they bring him in on questioning that they really shouldn't know. Like, how did Tanner know that? You know what I mean? I don't think that's public knowledge. It's public knowledge that, Cal is no longer the TA and Aurora Teagarden is, but I don't think it's public knowledge who turned him in. So that kind of was a red flag for me. Like, why does Tanner know it was Kevin? And, the cameras were normally at the door, but why were they showing the scene? Like, it's very clear everybody was involved. Then you find out later that Owen was actually on good terms with Kevin. So that's why my suspicion was, okay, maybe, Jenny and Owen are dating or they're trying to get back together and they planned it together to kill Kevin so they could be together. But then you find the sodium nitrate was planted in, I believe it was Owen's car. So it's just interesting because then you bring Owen in for questioning and he, throws the guilt towards Tanner. Tanner says he didn't do it. He pushes a finger to Cal. It's just interesting to me that they're all kind of pointing the finger to other people, but to me, it's like they know information they shouldn't know, right? So, I'm sorry. Hal said that Owen was in Kevin's car. So, I mean, you find evidence in the man's car, and he didn't know it was there because he said you can definitely search my car, right? I have nothing to hide. And then they find the sodium nitrate that was obviously planted in his car. But when he says that, he was like, okay, I saw this person walking around Kevin's car, right? So again, they're kind of throwing the blame on somebody else, which I get. Obviously, if you're being interviewed for a murder you didn't commit, you're going to try to throw blame on somebody else. Like, I get that, right? It's just odd to me that the information they're throwing out isn't public knowledge. At least I don't think it was public knowledge. So I'm really suspicious of all four. So, I mean, this movie has been very good for me because it's not a clear, like, I know who the killer is. It keeps going back and forth. And of course, there's cute little banter with Ro and Arthur and Sally, and Daniel, the cook. And, obviously, Ro tries to get Sally a job at the pizza place so that she can kind of be a spy. And Sally doesn't want to do it at first, but Aurora, she's very convincing. Well, it's not a spy. You're doing journalism research. Don't you want to be a journalist and a reporter? So she kind of convinces Sally to do it, which again plays into the Sally and Ro friendship, just like, in the other Rose with Candace Cameron Ray. I feel like she convinced the older Sally to do stuff too. So I actually like the parallels, and I think that they do a really good job as a young Aurora and Sally. Again, my opinion, judgment-free zone, no hate comments. I love both of them, but I am enjoying, these new characters. So again, they take everybody in for questioning. I really wasn't thinking it was Jenny, but at this point, since there's so much motive for each suspect and they're kind of blaming each other, I am thinking it's at least two people, right? If it's not Jenny and Owen, how do Cal and Tanner and Owen and Jenny kind of all know each other? I went with Jenny and Owen because they're dating, right? So I mean, I can see them doing it together. But it's definitely interesting. So once Sally finds out that the poison is still there, they find out that because Sally works there, right? She's having problems with the machine. Ro comes and helps, and they find crystals underneath the shake machine. So to me, that was interesting too. Like, if Cal killed him and he used it, why didn't he clean it up? Like, why is it there days later? So I just feel like somebody's planting evidence, but I feel like everybody's being pinned for it. Like, if there's just not enough on one person. I definitely thought it was odd that they found it, Sally found it with Ro. So, Sally's ready to leave. It's nighttime, and her boss, which is another cameo, Kayvon Smith. I love that actor. He was the boss. Love him. And he has, Sally close up. And Sally's going, well, I've been here a couple of days. And Rose like, I'll help you close up. I know it's a big place. So this is when all of the commotion happens at the end of the movie, right? Sally's going to lock up. You see somebody kind of grab her at the end, and you're like, okay, here's the action. We're going to find out who did it. Um, and once you see it at the end, Ro looks at the camera, and Ro is actually finding out, okay, Cal was cleaning the place, was cleaning the camera, and he purposely moved the camera from the door to, you know what I mean, the main section there. And the main section there is the scene where everybody has motive. So it's like it clicked in Rora's head. She's like, okay, I know who did it. So she calls Arthur, and she turns her back to the front of the restaurant as she's calling Arthur. And I'm like, that's not smart. You don't think anybody's there because Sally's, locking up. But as soon as she did it, I was like, yep, they're coming for her. And she calls Arthur, and then somebody comes up behind her and knocks the phone in the trash. And you see it's Cal. So I'm like, okay, it was Cal. But then you see Tanner and Owen run in. And they're like, what's going on? You told us to meet us here. What's wrong? And Cal's like, Aurora figured it out. We have to do something. And he grabs Sally, right? And Owen is like, I don't know about this. I'm out. Like I'm not hurting anybody. I'm out. And Tanner's just kind of standing there like, what do you want me to do next? Right. And Aurora is kind of saying, what happened, because Sally doesn't know what's going on, right? She's just locking the door. Aurora is the one who saw the footage and was like, okay, Cal purposely moved the camera away from the door. Why did he do that? So that we could see everything unfold. Because remember, that one scene shows everybody touching it. Cal making the shake, Owen, paying for it with his back to the back to the camera for a couple seconds. You see Jenny put the sugar in, and you see Tanner fight with them and knock the cup down. So everybody was touching it. Jenny wasn't in on it at all. That was just, her putting sugar in it. So it was just the three boys, but they planned it. They kind of planted evidence for each of them so that they all had a reasonable doubt and that nobody would go down for it. So one planted the evidence in the car. Cal kept the crystals there so that they would think it was him. So I thought it was really interesting because you had me guessing. At the end, I knew it had to have been more than one person because it was just too strong and it just didn't make sense to me. But I would not have guessed that it was Cal, Tanner, and Owen together. I thought maybe it was Owen and Jenny. Because I just didn't know how they knew each other. However, it makes sense because I was mentioning earlier, I thought it was odd that Cal knew, right? Or I'm sorry, that Tanner knew that Kevin was the one who snitched on Cal. Why would Tanner know that? He doesn't really know Cal. But there's definitely, different, clues that I didn't include in my review. But so it's definitely an interesting movie if you want to watch it and kind of see how everything evolves together. But you kind of had me guessing because I thought it was Tanner who broke into the dentist office. I kind of mentioned that earlier. But I don't know who broke into her office. It could have been Owen, it could have been Cal. So I'm thinking, is it the same person? And they don't really tell you. Like, I think Aurora just assumed, like, okay, Owen's the one who broke into the dentist officer. This person's the one who broke into the professor's office. I don't think exactly who did it is relevant. It's just the fact that they all conspired together to kill Kevin, which I thought was a clever ending because, like I said, I didn't really put together Owen, Tanner, and Cal because they were all a little different. But if you put together that they knew information about each other that you wouldn't normally know from somebody who's not your friend, you can kind of piece it together. So I personally loved how it ended. Sally runs away, Aurora runs away. They kind of push him down, try to get back. She gets back to her phone. Arthur gets her message, and of course, at the end, Arthur comes in, saves the day, arrests all three of them. But you can definitely tell from that last scene that Cal was the instigator. He was kind of the ringleader. At the end, Owen was like, "Look, I'm out. Like, I'm not gonna hurt Aurora, Sally. Like, this is over." But he kind of gets peer pressured, and then Aurora's like, "Just put it down," and he kind of puts it down. Cal comes back and yells at him. So you can kind of tell, like, they're obviously all gonna go down for the crime because they planned it and they kind of framed each other so that nobody would go down for the crime. So, like I said, I liked how it ended because I have to honestly say I did not pick the three of them. I picked two people together. But at the end, like, I can see how Jenny was just a coincidence. I didn't really think Jenny did it, but then I said yes to Owen and Jenny doing it together because towards the end of the movie, you knew it had to be more than one person. And since I didn't see a connection with Cal and Tanner teaming up, I just had to go with the two people that had a connection, which was Owen and Jenny. So even though I really didn't think Jenny was strong as a motive or that she would really do it, if it has to be two people and there's really only four people to suspect, that's why I concluded with it had to be them together. So of course they all get arrested, and Ro, is still dating Daniel. So I like how that's developing. So if you like it, if you like the characters, you like to see a good mystery, definitely check out the movie. I really enjoyed it. If you have me guessing throughout and have me analyzing things, you're gonna get a good rating from me, right? How I do my gen rating is what I loved about the movie, what I didn't like or disliked. Was it believable? Did I believe the story and the actors? And then the fears, the overall feels of the movie. So you've probably heard me say this throughout. Like, I really did enjoy the characters. A young Aurora. I loved Aida getting involved. I loved how they displayed all of the suspects, right? Because you kind of had me guessing. And how they put it all through. Like, I loved Arthur and Sally. I thought they played great. I didn't dislike anything really. I can't really think of anything that you would put in, or maybe something I didn't pay attention to. And I know you can definitely leave your comments. Like I said, no negative hate comments. But I know not everybody likes the characters that are playing these roles. I personally do. I think Sally, Arthur, and Aurora were great picks. I love Aida with being Mary Lou Henner. I think she kind of makes it all gel together because she's the familiar face. So I like that she's in there. So I personally really enjoyed the movie. I believed all the characters. I think they're great actors and actresses. I believed Cal and Tanner. Like, you want to believe the main characters because you want to believe that there really are suspects. And I thought everybody did great in this movie. The overall feels, I'm thinking about it the next day. So I definitely think it was a great movie. I don't always give a high rating on movies, especially the whodunits, because I can usually say I wanted more of this or it was too obvious. But in this movie, I am actually going to give it as my gen rating 5 gold crowns, only because I couldn't pinpoint exactly who it was. I knew it was more than one person, but I didn't pick all three of them together. So if you get me stumped, you're going to get a high gen rating. So I think I was almost there because I kind of knew they had to have known things about each other, but I never would have picked that they would have known each other well enough to premeditate and plan out this so thoroughly, this murder together. So I think I was almost there, but I have to say at the end, I did pick, Owen and Jenny, because a two-person job, that's who I picked. So well done, Hallmark. I thought it was a great movie. I'm really looking forward to more, early Aurora movies. So I hope you enjoyed my review and my gen rating. And if you have a chance to watch the movie, definitely watch it because it was really entertaining. And if you have any comments or questions, you can leave them below. And until next time, I will see you then. Bye.